Now this may surprise some of you because some people actually say that the only supplements they find useful are Good morning, friends! Not all health supplements are actually healthy. In this video, you're going to learn about 5 health supplements that you're better off avoiding. But before you do, please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, like the video, and comment on the video to help the channel's growth. Now let's get started. First of all, I want to let you guys know that this is a video idea from a subscriber. A subscriber recently suggested this video idea to me. I'd never thought of the idea myself before, and I think it's a great way to introduce people to some of the mechanisms by which these supplements may be unhealthy. These learning lessons, I think, may be useful in people's consideration of the health value of supplements later on when they make the decision on their own. Let's begin with the first supplement I chose to list, which is iron. It's an element. Iron is necessary for our bodies, but unless you have a genetic issue or due to a certain disease or environmental condition, an issue developing, producing, synthesizing red blood cells, unless you have an issue with that or some other particular reason to supplement with iron, you're most likely better off avoiding supplementing with iron. That's the reason why out of multivitamins, the most common essential element usually not included, I think among the main elements, is iron. So this is somewhat well understood in the community, but surprisingly not everyone understands it. Keep in mind that if you're not a vegan, if you're a meat eater, you're getting quite a bit of iron from your red meat. Your red meat has other micronutrients that are valuable for you. So you don't want to rely on a supplement that doesn't have these other micronutrients that are valuable for you to get the iron that you have to get either way through your diet. You want to get it with other synergistic effects. So all I'm trying to say is do not supplement with iron. Iron levels are associated with the diseases of aging among humans. They're associated with neurodegenerative disease, with cancers, with metabolic diseases, and so on. While you've been supplementing with iron, others that are focused on their longevity have actually been donating blood in an effort to simulate therapeutic phlebotomies, that is bloodletting that is meant to enhance someone's health, in an effort just to get rid of their iron levels. A lot of us that are focused on longevity are trying to be mildly low in iron, mildly deficient in iron according to modern standards. So don't buy a supplement with iron in it. Second, there is no reason for you to supplement with vitamin A. Do not supplement with vitamin A, particularly in the form called beta carotene, which is what most supplemental vitamin A's are found in, that form, beta carotene. Avoid this. If you haven't watched my video on the vitamins that cause cancers, check out that video. You'll leave the video concluding that you should not be supplementing with vitamin A, that supplementing with beta carotene in particular may increase the likelihood you develop a cancer and may worsen your chances of surviving it. If you're really obsessed with vitamin A for some reason and want to supplement with some carotenoids, you may consider lutein. Lutein is very useful for your eyes and for your brain, and we may make a video on lutein eventually. This is an under-supplemented with supplement. Consider lutein, and if you want to be adventurous, maybe consider astaxanthin or zeaxanthin, although those are less evidenced. But certainly don't supplement with beta carotene, and don't take a multivitamin that has beta carotene in it. Third, don't supplement with ashwagandha extract. Ashwagandha extract is popular in ancient Indian medicine, and maybe for good reason. But there are 2 reasons not to supplement with ashwagandha extract. First, ashwagandha, through mechanisms that remain cellularly slightly unclear, ashwagandha modulates the GABA system in our bodies. The GABA system is tightly regulated. When we modulate it with outside exogenous forces, our bodies start basically being less inhibitory. We become more prone to anxiety. So if you get used to taking a Xanax, for example, you'll eventually get more anxious naturally. The same is true if you take a supplement that is potently GABAergic, like ashwagandha. So that's one reason, but the second reason is really the main reason I recommend avoiding it. Ashwagandha has been associated with sudden and unpredictable liver failures in case reports. There are many of these case reports. Ashwagandha has done this often. In fact, in my personal consultations, I've found that a lot of the time that I see people with unusually elevated liver values, those are the liver related or the liver damage related enzymes ALT and AST, when those enzymes are unusually elevated, I often ask a person if they're taking ashwagandha. Sometimes they are, and when they remove ashwagandha, their liver values normalize. So ashwagandha supplementation can both cause inflammation, sustained inflammation in the liver, but can also cause sudden liver failures, in which case people actually need to replace their livers. It's that second scenario there with the liver toxicity that really concerns me. If you can't predict what is happening to your liver, you can't be getting blood tests every 3 or 4 days. So ashwagandha becomes very dangerous for large populations to supplement with, because some of the people will be very irritated by it and some may lose their livers. And also, by the way, kava, which some people supplement with for the same reasons, it's GABAergic, is also associated with liver toxicity. If you really want to supplement with something GABAergic that seems natural to you, I would recommend instead considering L-theanine, which is a phytochemical found in teas, or Bacopa monnieri, which is also popular in Indian medicine, or for example valerian root extract. But leave it there. Do not supplement with ashwagandha. Fourth, Shilajit, another popular supplement in ancient Indian medicine. Shilajit is taken from layers of rock that have developed over hundreds of thousands and maybe millions of years in Asia. Unfortunately, the many studies on Shilajit show that it is frequently contaminated with what are called mycotoxins made from fungi and other beings that reside in these rocky substances, but also with heavy metals. It is so frequently contaminated with heavy metals that it is nearly impossible to supplement with Shilajit safely. There is no third-party reviewer that reviews Shilajit products, and therefore there is actually no Shilajit product that I can find myself that is not contaminated with dangerously high levels of heavy metals. So if you are supplementing with Shilajit, you should probably immediately stop. By the way, this is a common problem with supplement companies and supplements in general. The potential for heavy metal contamination depends on the kind of supplement. So for example, coca extract is frequently contaminated with cadmium. In fact, the organic coca extracts are more contaminated with cadmium than the non-organic chocolates that we come across. And that's a serious consideration with regard to coca. But unlike coca, Shilajit is not third-party reviewed. With coca, we know that coca-via has acceptable levels of cadmium and has a good concentration of the phytochemicals we're looking for. But with Shilajit, there's no such assurance we can derive. Finally, the last supplement that I think is very unnecessary is protein. Now this may surprise some of you, because some people actually say that the only supplements they find useful are protein supplements. I want to tell you that protein supplements may be useful, but if you're concerned about your health, they may be one of the poorest decisions you'll make in regards to where to put your money. Unless you are a pregnant woman or a person still developing, someone below the age of 20 or so. In that case, the amount of protein you're able to consume, so for example, you may have a low appetite as a pregnant woman, the amount of protein you're able to consume really determines the health and development of the child. But in cases of adulthood, and particularly before the age of 60, there is some research that indicates that above the age of 60, we may benefit from slightly higher protein consumption. Walter Longo, by the way, discusses this in his book, and in many interviews I highly recommend searching him out as a resource. Walter Longo is among the world's foremost authorities on diet and longevity. But anyway, other than being above the age of 60, it's quite clear there's almost a consensus from the research, there is a consensus, that higher protein consumption between, say, the age of 20 to 60 ages us faster. This is well understood in a cellular manner, and it's true across species. So we don't want to consume too much protein in our adulthood. We have a limit, you could say, on the amount of protein that we can consume without harming our health. So even if you do consume 150 grams of protein, which, by the way, Walter Longo would advise you to consume maybe between 60 to 80 grams of protein as an adult male. But if you decide to consume around 150 grams of protein, you still most likely want that protein to come with other micronutrients. That's because even if you have your protein macronutrient category unlimited, you have a limit on your calories for health. So one of those two limits will affect you. Either your total calories, because if you consume a lot of calories, you will be unhealthy and you will age faster, or your limit on protein consumption, because if you consume more than, say, 100 grams of protein as an adult, you will probably age yourself faster. So these two issues, and the consideration that we know that micronutrient sufficiency as well as a balance of healthful signaling phytochemicals. Those are the chemicals found in fruits and vegetables, like in pecans or in berries, that are healthful. A balance of those and sufficient amount of consumption of these molecules is necessary for human health. In fact, it's one of the main ways we can manipulate our human health in adulthood. So knowing all of this, you will always, if you're optimizing for health, choose your protein to come with other micronutrients that you value, like choline, for example, or B vitamins. Therefore, you will not consume protein in processed form. Remember, processed foods are unhealthy. Why? Because they isolate nutrients and they remove other nutrients at the very least. The change in the balance of those nutrients or the combination may affect our health, but at the very least, we're missing those other nutrients. So whey protein, for example, or casein protein is a processed food. It removes the B vitamins that you find in egg yolks. It removes also the B vitamins and also some things like, for example, the zinc that you might find in liver, for example. It removes all of these small micronutrients that we value and gives us just the protein. But this ends up giving us the less opportunity to eat meats during the day without exceeding our protein requirement. For younger people, by the way, I would highly recommend taking a linear optimization course in college. That is a math course that teaches you about how optimizing things works out physically, mathematically. But the point is, you have a limit on your calories and your protein. So an optimized person who has limited amount of choice to choose items. By the way, in operations research, there's a problem called the knapsack problem that's similar to this. You have a limited amount of choice from things that you can consume, and you want to consume the foods with the most micronutrients per calorie or per protein gram. Therefore, you will never choose whey protein or something like that. And let me tell you another thing. I believe that even elite athletes, if the majority of their protein comes from processed foods, from supplements, they will have worse performance than if the majority came from red meat and valuable sources of protein. Which, by the way, we should speak about here. The valuable sources of protein for a non-vegan are fish, red meat mainly, and then organ meats, particularly liver. There's a limit to how much liver you can take because of toxicity from copper or iron, and therefore you end up not eating as much liver as you would want to and have to move on to red meat, which is more micronutrient dense than chicken, for example. But you wouldn't eat fish at all if you were supplementing fish oil because you wouldn't want any mercury. This is how you would optimize your protein sources. Anyway, my point is you would choose from protein sources according to their micronutrient value. So you might start in your day with choosing how much liver you can consume, then how much red meat or eggs, egg yolks particularly, that you can consume, and then you might think of less valuable protein sources. If you ran out of, essentially, it really wouldn't happen. You would always be choosing those valuable protein sources. So anyway, I got a little distracted there. What I was trying to say is that even elite athletes that consume the majority of their protein from processed foods, I believe, will perform worse than those that consume the majority from real meats and real whole protein sources. But further, I also think that even if the elite athlete is consuming the majority of their protein from real foods, adding in 1 or 2 protein supplemental drinks will not make a really big consequence in their development. At least for strength athletes, power athletes, and bodybuilders. I don't think, for example, their 1 whey protein drink right after their main workout of the day makes much of a difference in the long term. In fact, I don't even know if it does make a difference, especially when someone's consuming enough protein throughout the day. And one of the reasons I would say so is because, to be honest with you, I believe that the value of protein for growth, which is also the reason that it ages us, the value isn't so much as it being a building block for muscle, but rather it being a signaling molecule that turns on the growth pathways in our body that are governed by mTOR, the mechanistic target of rapamycin. It is the amino acid leucine that potently turns on these growth pathways. If you're eating red meat or meats a lot throughout the day, your mTOR is turned on anyway. That whey protein shake right after a workout probably won't do much. And if it would do much, it would probably be the case that isolated leucine would do that more effectively. So anyway, my point is that protein supplements are really a waste as well, in my opinion, and also almost necessarily indicate that the diet is no longer optimized. It is no longer the highest bang for your buck that you can get for the amount of protein you're consuming. Anyway, friends, I hope this was interesting for you and that maybe it had some lessons in it. I look forward to seeing you again this afternoon.